and welcome to Inside Scottish Business, the show that looks behind the headlines created by Scotland's business community. I'm Kim McAllister. Today we've been drinking beer with BrewDog, getting advice from Brodies, and talking sense at Sengs. But the one thing they all have in common is gutsy ambition and the track record to back it up. But first, with labels like Sink the Bismarck and Nanny State, BrewDog has always played the cheeky newcomer in the beer industry. Now 9 years old, with 20 pubs across the UK and a turnover of almost £30 million and profits up 69%, the company is growing up and looking to secure £25 million in its latest crowdfunding initiative.
Well, the total's hugely ambitious. If we're successful in raising the 25 million, it will be the biggest crowdfunding exercise the world's ever seen. BrewDog don't like to do things by halves, and so far so good. It's going really well. It's going to run for the next 12 months, and we've got every confidence that we can inspire people and get it to that level.
Brilliant. So assuming you're successful and you get your 25 million, what are you going to do with that money?
We've got a huge number of projects lined up over the next few years. The main ones would be our expansion of the bar estate. We've been hugely successful in growing our estate to 20 bars now, but we want to continue that growth. We think there's an appetite in the UK for somewhere between 50 and 100 BrewDog bars ultimately over the long term. So we want to continue to grow the bar estate. We're putting in a further huge investment up in Ellen and to build a second brew house, which will take us to 1 million hectolitres a year. We're currently at 250,000, so that will really allow us to continue to grow beyond next year. We've just installed a canning line up in Ellen, and we want to develop our range of canned beers, so some of the money is going to go towards that. And there's a whole host of other things, including even a BrewDog hotel, which we'd like to build probably close to the brewery in Ellen, although we're still looking to identify sites. But we feel that's would be a great benefit to people who want to come and visit the Aberdeen area and visit the brewery.
The bar side of the business I find really interesting, considering where it started in 2007, two guys making their own home brews. At what stage did the conversation happen? We need to open our own bars. Yeah,
I think it's a really great question, and I think thinking back to when the guys opened the first bar, it felt hugely risky. And we had a lot of kind of naysayers saying, well, there's no way you can open a craft beer bar in Aberdeen and expect it to be successful. We took over this site here. I think it had been closed for quite a long time prior to us taking the site. But what we found was that as soon as we opened, we'd really tapped into this kind of, this growing interest in craft beer and this kind of willingness in drinkers to come in and try something a little bit different. So really, since opening Aberdeen and realising that we could make a success of it in Aberdeen, that's really filled us with confidence in terms of replicating that success throughout the country.
Creating a culture seems to be something that BrewDog does very well. When BrewDog started in 2007, I was working in a drinks magazine, and we used to always look forward to the press releases because they just made us laugh so much.
Sure.
And we just knew these guys get it. They know how to promote themselves. They know how to tell a story. They know how to just push the boundaries that little bit. And that's continued as the company has grown. How important is the PR marketing approach to the company growth?
I think it is really important, and I think, at the end of the day, I think a lot of people are attracted to BrewDog because of that message and the fact that we are a slightly counter-cultural brand. So I think what we've learnt a little bit as we've grown as well is that we perhaps haven't got quite the same message as we did in the early days. So it's been kind of an interesting journey for us, interesting challenge about how we evolve the brand as we've gone forward. So we retain that irreverence, but perhaps don't sound like the teenage child quite so much as we did in the early days. So I think it's really important that we do maintain that, but continue to mature and evolve the brand as we move forward.
This would be a good point to point out what we have on the table here with us. Can you just talk us through the beers and the packaging?
This was one of the earlier freeze distilled beers, and as we produced these stronger and stronger freeze distilled beers, we ended up in a sort of arms race with this German brewer who was also producing some freeze distilled beers. So Sink the Bismarck was our kind of almost like penultimate statement against those guys to say, right, let's see if you can beat us now. And in fact, they did end up beating us again. So that's when we came out with End of History. And again, to try and top what was already quite a controversial statement with Sink the Bismarck, we thought we'd package this one in a taxidermy squirrel.
Nice.
So we managed to get this one up to I think it was 55% alcohol.
Wow.
So that was at the time the strongest beer in the world. So it's become a fairly iconic thing for us, the end of history. And it's certainly still the most visited page on the website.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's one of these things that's just stuck with us for good reason, really. And we've sort of toyed with taxidermy again since then. So there's been other ways that we've kind of used that effect as well.
Yeah, your manager was telling me this was actually roadkill from Fraserburgh, so no squirrels were harmed in the making.
Yeah, that's right. They're all ethically sourced.
So you're the operations director, or special ops, as your business card says. How have you made sure that the business has kept pace?
Yeah, it's a real challenge. I think one of the most difficult things in my role, and I'm sure a lot of the roles in the business, is that the goalposts are always moving. So the volumes of beer we're producing are continually growing, the number of people we employ is growing, and the volume of transactions is growing. So we need to continue to look that little bit ahead and try and put in place the kind of infrastructure to allow the company to continue growing in a smooth fashion. So that's a big challenge. My background's in IT. So I've been quite involved in a lot of the bigger IT projects for the business. So for instance, taking the bar estate and looking how we can implement sort of business reporting systems in the bars to make sure that we're getting all the reporting back to head office, that kind of thing. Big project now is all about how we are going to implement a new ERP system in the business. Since we've moved to Ellen, we've got a bit more space, we've grown our team even further, and we've put a huge focus on people, and we've grown our people team. We're doing a huge bit of work at the moment in terms of trying to encapsulate the kind of BrewDog ethos, creating sort of a big focus on inductions for staff and also training and development. So we really put a lot of investment in that over the last year particularly, and it's somewhere we'll continue to put a lot of focus.
And the States, is that your next big market?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the States traditionally has been quite a tough one for us to crack, and I think that's because of the strength of the craft beer sector in the US. So for us to export a 4-pack of Punk IPA into California, suddenly it would cost $11 or $12 to the customer, whereas they can get a 6-pack of a fresh American IPA for perhaps $8. So it's very difficult for us to compete. So I think the only way we can compete is for us to brew our beer in America. So we're currently looking at a couple of sites in the States with a view to having a production brewery in the States at some point in the future.
Fantastic. Coming up, 2 of Brodie's top lawyers give the inside story on the future of oil and gas. SBNN has more Scottish business news than anyone else. Subscribe at sbnn.co.uk.